Cuba, it's me. Welcome to episode 219 of The Willu Show, which stands for Wrestling is Life. Life is Wrestling. Now, today I wanted to talk about crying about wrestling. Have you, as a fan, or a wrestler, manager, referee, promoter, whatever it may be, have you ever cried about wrestling? I know I have, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I mean, it's something I know for men they don't like to admit. Oh, it's you got to be tough. You can't cry. Dummy up, whatever. And like for females who have been people always say are more emotional, which I don't know if that's true or not. Um, to be a wrestler, you have to be tough. So a lot of the wrestlers that are women are really tough. So maybe they are not prone to cry quite as much as some other females. So anyway, this is my story. I used to be pretty easy to cry when I was a kid. I wasn't very tough, or at least I didn't know I was very tough. Um, but then I remember it reached a point where I just didn't cry anymore. I just held my emotions in, and no matter what bad happened, I wouldn't cry. And then when I got to be an adult, when bad things would happen, I would just hold them in. And sometimes that's not good, because if you hold in your emotions for too long, they're bound to come out some other ways. So whenever I watch like a particularly happy movie or read a book with a happy ending, and I'm like a hopeless romantic too. So anytime there's like people get together that they should and everything is perfect ending, it brings tears to my eyes. And even just watching some of those silly shows on TV, when someone I've grown to really like wins the competition, or they get rewarded like on Undercover Boss, and then they get rewarded for being a good job and they get like $50,000 and stuff like that and a raise and everything else. They bring tears to my eyes, but I wouldn't say I had a straight out cry. So what happens is, because I hold in the sad and bad things, I happy cry very easily. Like whenever I go to the cameraman and watch like one of his Christmas concerts or something like that, I get so proud and overwhelmed that tears will fall down. But it's not like a big sobbing cry. No one will really even notice unless they look me right in the eyes and they can see that they are wet. But let's take it back to wrestling. So a lot of bad things have happened to me in wrestling, as far as injuries, wrestling crappy matches, having people upset with me, maybe like in the locker room or because of my performance. But fortunately for me, or that would have really looked bad, I never cried about those things. And then the times that I have cried about wrestling, they've all been happy cries, but luckily as well, they were never around anybody. It was in the presence of my own home by myself, and no one was around. So like sometimes, like if they build a story up for a long time, and someone finally gets their just due, I will get tears in my eyes. Like when Daniel Bryan finally won the title, or when someone is forced to retire. It's sad for me, and sometimes I'll get tears in my eyes. Or like some of the Hall of Fame speeches get me really wound up and emotional. But for me, when I'm that happy about wrestling and everything goes the way it should be, man, I can get really emotional. I'll feel on top of the world, but also tears will come out because I'm just that happy. The first time I remember really crying about wrestling is one time I wrestled Reckless Ryan Swift for a Rogers TV taping, and it was a pretty good little match. Check it out; it's on YouTube. Rogers PWA episode 1, and anyways, I had a bunch of people come up to me and praise me after that match, and to me, man, compliments mean a lot to me. And it's funny because I didn't get a lot of compliments as a kid growing up. I'm awkward the way I take them, and I try to be really humble, and I try and brush them off, but they really do mean a lot to me. And then, especially when you get compliments from people that you look up to and you really idolize and you really want their respect, and then they tell you that kind of stuff, man, that is probably the greatest feeling in the world for me as far as wrestling goes. So that was the first time that tears got into my eyes when I got home. The next time, I wrestled Ruffy Silverstein in a street fight, and Geza Coleman was the ref. And the things that I talked about with Geza after the match that made me finally realize that he realized I was finally starting to listen to his advice that he had been giving me all those years, and I was really emotional after that match. There's been a couple other ones. I was really emotional after this past weekend. I just felt like me and Lenny tore the house down, and that match was just really well done. But yeah, anytime I've gotten like injured or thinking I had to retire or screwed up a match, those ones I get angry at myself, I'm hard on myself, but I don't cry. But I do want to hear from you guys. Let me know. As always, on the Willow Show, like or you get a leg drop, comment or you get a clothesline, subscribe or you get a suplex. Have you ever cried about wrestling? And you know what? Maybe you're not brave enough as me to go into detail as to why. Mind you, mine was happy crying. But a simple yes or no would be appreciated. So let's hear it. What do you got to say? This has been episode 218 of The Willow Show. I'm your host, Elian Habanero. I love wrestling. Cuba!